Everyone. In this class, we'll briefly learn about visual acuity. Visual acuity is the degree of which the details and counters of the objects are perceived. It is usually defined in terms of minimal separable distance, that is, the shortest distance by which two lines can be separated and still be perceived as two lines. And it is tested using Snellen letter charts. Normally, Snellen's letter charts are viewed at the distance of 20 feet or 6 meters, and it is usually read as 20 by 20 or 6 by 6. Visual fields. Visual field of each eye is the portion of external world visible out of that eye. It can be mapped using perimeter. The extent of normal visual field with 5 mm white color object is superiorly 50 degree, nasally 60 degree, inferiorly 70 degree, and temporally it is 90 degree. Duplicity theory. The rods are extremely sensitive to light and they are receptors for night vision, that is scotopic vision, whereas cones have a high threshold for stimulation and it is called as photopic vision. That is, there are two types of inputs from the rods and cones to central nervous system. The existence of these two types of inputs working maximally under different degrees of stimulation is known as duplicity theory. Coming to the optics of eye, when a ray of light passing from one media to another media having different refractive index, it refracts or bends. Greater the difference in refractive index, greater will be the refraction. The light passes through the following refractive medias. First, it falls on the cornea, then aqueous humor, then lens, and vitreous humor. The power of the lens in diopter can be given as 1 by f, that is focal length in meters. All the parallel rays that strike on the biconvex lens get refracted and converge to a point, and this point is called as focus. Difference between optical center of lens and focus is called as focal length. Reduced eye. Due to the differences in the refractive indices of the eye structures, the refraction of light is complex. Therefore, compound eye refraction can be simplified as reduced eye or schematic eye as proposed by Listing. The reduced eye of Listing is 24 mm long in anteroposterior diameter. Reduced eye consists of a single refracting plane, that is the resultant of all the refractive media in the eye, and is situated 1.5 millimeters behind the anterior surface of the cornea and a single nodal point. Nodal point is a center of the optical system. A ray passing through the nodal point suffers no refraction. In Listing's reduced eye, the nodal point is 17 millimeter anterior to retina, that is the focal length of the optical system, and hence power of the single lens of Listing eye, that is equivalent to the combined powers of all the lenses of natural eye, is about 59 diopters. So this is the diagram showing the reduced eye, where you can see the object and its image in the retina. This is the principal point, this is the lens, and this is the retina. This is the nodal point, which is also called as optical center, and the focal length of reduced eye is around 17 millimeters and the total length of the eyeball is around 24 millimeters. Visual pathway. It is a three-order neuronal pathway. The visual fibers arise in the layer of nerve cells, that is bipolar and ganglion cells in the retina. First order neuron. These are the bipolar cells with which a receptors synapse. It is of three types: rod bipolar cell with rods, flat bipolar cells with cones, and midget bipolar cell. The bipolar cells synapse with ganglion cells. Second order neurons. These are ganglion cells, and ganglion cells are of two types: large magno and small parvo. The axons of ganglion cells emerge out of the eyeball as optic nerve. The optic nerve consists of two groups of fibers. The fibers which coming from the nasal half, the retina, which carry light sensation from the temporal half, the field of vision, and also fibers from the temporal half, the retina, which carry light sensation from the nasal half of the field of vision. There will be partial crossing of the optic nerve fibers occurs at optic chiasma, and two optic tracts are thus formed. The optic tract ends in the lateral geniculate body. Then third order neurons. These arise from the lateral geniculate body and ends in visual cortex. Lateral geniculate body has 6 layers. From layer 1 and 2, the lateral geniculate body magnocellular pathway, and from layers 3 to 6, parvocellular pathway projects to the visual cortex. Magnocellular pathway is concerned with detection of movement, depth, flicker, whereas parvocellular pathway is concerned with color of the object, texture, shape, and other fine details of the object. Some fibers in the interlaminar region of lateral geniculate body ends in blobs in visual cortex and is concerned with color vision only. Pathways end in primary visual area 17, visual association area 18, which is concerned with the depth perception, visual orientation, and relay of information, and area 19, that is related to the occipital eye field for conjugate movement of eye, eye to opposite side. Then they also go to the area number 8, that is the frontal eye field for the visual reflexes. This is the diagram showing visual pathway, where you can see that the nasal fibers, the optic nerve contains the nasal fibers and the temporal fibers of the same eye, and the nasal fibers, they decussate to the opposite side, whereas the temporal field, they are going to run in the same side of the brain. Okay, so that is how optic tract is formed from the half of the temporal fibers and half the nasal fibers of the same eyeball. Then they go to the lateral geniculate body, and they are going to go to the 6th layer of lateral geniculate body, and from the area 1 and 2, the magnocellular pathway arises, and from 3, 4, 5, 6, parvocellular pathway arises, and they project to the primary visual cortex. Some fibers of the optic tract deviate from the main tract and end in midbrain, so which mediate visual reflexes, and suprachiasmatic nucleus, which mediate light and dark cycles. Effect of lesions of the optic pathway. The effect of lesion of the visual pathways are described in terms of field of vision. The following definitions will help to understand these effects. Anopia is complete loss of visual field in an eye. Hemianopia is blindness of half the visual field. Quadrantanopia is loss of 1/4 of visual field. Homonymous hemianopia is when same side, that is right or left, of the visual field of the both the eyes are lost, and heteronymous hemianopia is when different sides of the field of vision of both eyes are lost. And scotoma is loss of vision in which is confined to the center of the visual field. Okay. The diagram shows the lesion of the optic nerve in the figure A, which is it leads to anopia. Lesion in the optic chiasma leads heteronymous hemianopia. Lesion in the optic tract will also lead to the homonymous it will lead to homonymous hemianopia. Lesions in the lateral geniculate body leads to homonymous hemianopia. Lesion in the optic radiation, that is geniculocalcarine tract, also leads homonymous hemianopia, but with macular sparing, whereas lesion of optical cortex can lead to scotoma or quadrant anopia. Macular sparing, the loss of peripheral vision with intact macular vision. This is because the macula has a large area of representation in the occipital lobe, and it is greater than that of peripheral part of the retina. Binocular vision. The central part of the visual fields of the two eyes coincide. Therefore, anything in this portion of the field is viewed with both the eyes and is fused at the cortical level into single image, and it is important for depth perception. So this diagram shows uh, different defect in the field of vision. If the lesion is in the optic nerve, it is going to lead to anopia. If the lesion is in optic chiasma, it is going to lead to bitemporal hemianopia. And if the lesion is C, that is a left optic tract, it is going to lead to the right homonymous hemianopia. And if the lesion is in the in the cortex at the cortical level or in the radiation, optic radiation, it is going to lead to homonymous hemianopia with a macular sparing. This is in brief about visual acuity. Thank you.